Joining us now is Okpe with stories trending around the world. Hello, Jinx.
Good morning, Dr. Mati.
Jineka.
I love that combination, blue and black.
Thank you.
It softens the jacket. You look great. Good morning, beautiful Tundu in purple. I know it's purple. You will not teach me.
Yeah, spot on.
How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Great.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Good morning, Rufai.
Morning, Oji. How are you? How's it going?
Excellent, thank
Great,
you.
good.
Well, good morning to you, viewers. Here are some of the stories that are trending across the globe. In the United States, Vice President Kamala Harris on Monday, in her first official overseas trip, had talks with Guatemalan President Alejandro Giammattei on the need to fight corruption to help deter undocumented immigration from Central America to the United States.
I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come.
And billionaire Jeff Bezos will be flying to space on the first crewed flight of the New Shepard, the rocket ship made by his space company Blue Origin. The flight is scheduled for July 20th, just 15 days after he's set to resign as CEO of Amazon. In France, the government has fined tech giant Google 220 million euros after discovering the company abused its dominant market position while selling online adverts. The penalty comes as the tech giant faces multiple U.S. lawsuits over anti-competitive behavior. In Nigeria, despite the government's suspension of Twitter, prominent church leaders on Monday were seen to have defied the ban. The General Overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Pastor Enoch Adeboye, posted a tweet and said it was done in accordance with Article 19 of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. While the founder and General Superintendent of Deeper Christian Life Ministry Worldwide, Pastor William Kumuyi, wrote that the church had branches across 100 countries and 5 continents, and so it could tweet from anywhere in the world. Under sports, 25-year-old Super Eagles striker Paul Onuachu on Monday won the Ebony Shoe Award in Belgium. Onuachu claimed the award meant for the best African player in the European country and became the first Nigerian player to win the award 25 years after Celestine Babayaro won the prize in 1996. Finally, under entertainment, British actress and singer Michaela Coel wins big at the TV category of the 2021 British Academy of Film and Television Arts Awards. Coel snagged the leading actress and best miniseries prizes, respectively, for the show I May Destroy You.
I May Destroy You took 6 months to film. The only people working for every day of that are the crew. I want to thank them and let them know that I am so grateful to them, because they don't get enough credit.
Well, let's begin what's trending in Nigeria. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jeffrey Onyema, on Monday, after meeting with foreign envoys over the government's decision to suspend Twitter in Nigeria, indicated that Twitter's operations will be restored only if the platform could be used responsibly. The foreign envoys, in a letter jointly signed and released over the weekend, condemned the suspension of Twitter. However, the ministry, in a statement released by its spokesperson, Ferdinand Ngonye, said the minister's comment was taken out of context. In the meantime, Nigerians have continued to opt for virtual private networks to access messages and to communicate with their followers. I mean, I want to be a little bit cheeky here, but I guess, this misinformation was not posted on Twitter, right? So... Right? I mean, so because, it's the clampdown. I mean, we need access to complete and correct information. So I don't know whether or not this clampdown on Twitter makes any difference. But like I said, in the meantime, people are still tweeting. The pastors yesterday caused a huge controversy when they posted on social media, on Twitter, about the fact that they have to continue posting and communicating with their followers because they have headquarters across the globe. Tundu.
A lot of people have followers across the globe, business interests across the globe, not even just business interests. Even Twitter can just be an outlet. We're talking about the money that's been lost, which is extremely important. But for some people, it's an outlet. You know, I'm a dinosaur, so I don't use Twitter. But I have to defend vigorously the rights of my fellow Nigerians to exercise that option. This is yet another thing that we cannot do just because we're Nigerian. There's so many things that are taken for granted in other countries. We don't ask for much. Simple pleasures, and we're being denied. And I'm glad to hear the spokesperson of the Minister for Foreign Affairs say that the comment was taken out of context. It shows that they do realize that it is regrettable to give as a condition that Twitter should be used responsibly. Who gets to decide what responsibly looks like? And my favorite, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Censorship by any other name is just as oppressive. That is just the wrong tone to take. It infantilizes the Twitter-using adult population of Nigeria, who should be able to police themselves. And if they cannot police themselves, Twitter, as we have seen, is quite quick to delete tweets.
Exactly. Very well said, Tundu. You cannot be more correct.
Let me start with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I think it's good that he took the diplomatic step of engaging the envoys in Nigeria of the various countries that came together to issue a statement to condemn Nigeria's decision to suspend Twitter, as the US, the UK, Canada, the European Union, and I think Ireland. They had raised questions about, freedom of expression and the need for the Nigerian government to respect the freedom of expression. Mr. Onyema told them that the Nigerian government takes their concern very seriously. And hence, he had taken the step to have a very friendly discussion with them about the issue. Now, that in itself is something that is commendable. A departure, a very instructive departure from the old methods of the administration. I hope they will not return to that, whereby if any external stakeholder or agent says something, the next thing will be to issue an abusive statement and tell them to mind their business. In this particular case, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs decided on the option of constructive engagement to explain the Nigerian side of the story. Now, Dr. Omoye, the spokesperson of the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, issued a statement saying that the minister did not say conditions have been given for, Twitter to be restored in Nigeria. But that the minister spoke in the context of responsibility of users, of the media, of high-tech platforms. Yeah, responsibility is, quite a vague, nebulous word. But even in journalism, there's a book by Francis Merrill titled Responsible Journalism. And we're told all the time that even as journalists, we must be responsible. And public officials give lectures a lot about that. They are experts in what it means to be responsible. The only problem is that, there is a deficit in terms of governance and responsibility and accountability. But if it's a general point, yes, it's a very familiar point, that people talk about all the time. Now, another statement that purportedly came out of that was the minister having told the diplomats that there is an ongoing conversation with Twitter, where I noticed that Dr. Ferdinand Onwoye did not deny that. So, but, if that is the case, we would like to know what the details of that conversation would possibly be. Then as for the pastors, yes, I was referring to Mark 12, verses 13 to 17, which says, render out to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give unto God what is God's. So, and I was saying, well, I like the leadership that has been demonstrated, because you have two very powerful, figures, like Pastor Kumuyi and Pastor Adeboye, standing up and saying, look, this is about fundamental human rights. And the church, as a multinational entity, is interested in the defense of human rights at the level of principle. That is excellent. But I was saying earlier that perhaps some people will raise the question that, okay, that is the God part of it. They want to engage with their flock. How about Caesar, that is saying don't use Twitter? Are they going to prosecute Pastor Adeboye or Pastor Kumuyi for using Twitter? That will be the day.
That's the question. Rufai, what do you think?
First, there are many things, many angles to this, but the first one is, I'm happy the pastors are speaking out. Because the church, when you look at medieval history, the church has a lot to do in terms of governance. In fact, there were some states in medieval history that are called Caesaropapist states, where the clergy takes a top echelon of society. France used to be one of those countries. And when you look at the ranking, as Edmund Burke did call it, before he called the media the first estate of the realm, mostly the part of the first estate of the realm, even before the king, was the clergy. So religious bodies take an important part in countries. I'm not saying Nigeria is a Caesaropapist state, but historically we've had countries like that. And that's why the churches too must speak out. You know why? Also because they have influence capital. Why is it that when a lot of these politicians are vying for position, they go to meet the pastors so that they will get their members to vote for them? It's because of the influence capital. Secondly, please, let's call it spade a spade. Let's not deceive ourselves. When I start to hear rhetorics like the responsible use, it just means censorship. That's what people want to drive out. Let's not, embed English for us. What is responsible use? When you check tweets, you will see people too in governance have fallen short of responsible use of Twitter. We had the case of a minister in this country that had a personal qualms with somebody, a musician, and he posted his own the personal conversation they had on Twitter. Twitter had to take that down. So when you say responsible use, everybody has fallen short. I mean, we've had parts in this country where people died and people tweeted the wrong numbers at which they died. It was still in the same country that the presidential spokesperson quoted the wrong figure of people that died in an incident. And he had to retract that. So we've all fallen short. So when we say this responsible use, I don't buy it. It's just a form of censorship. But the question is, if you have nothing to hide, why censor? If you really have nothing to hide, why censor? Because there are people too that are paid by political parties to troll other people on Twitter. I have been a victim of this. People of a certain political party troll me every time on Twitter. What about me filing legal suit for the assault and the injury I face on that? Yes. Let's not deceive ourselves. Please, the thing is, people are losing livelihood. They are losing jobs. Let's open this thing up so that the economy can start up again. So people will be sacked before this week runs out. Their social influencers are the only thing they do is they buy adverts on Twitter for their clients. Correct. And the economy is suffering. We are losing billions by the day. Let reason prevail. Open this up. We all know how these people use Twitter to fight opposition. Nobody clamped you down then. And my big question is, if the president's tweet was not deleted, will Twitter be suspended in Nigeria?
That's another question. We'll take another story. The federal government says it may consider the death penalty for vandals of critical railway equipment in the country. The Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amaechi, during a town hall meeting on protecting public infrastructure in Abuja, decried rail vandals across the country. The minister says he is in support of the death sentence for criminals because he is not quantifying the material cost or loss, but the lives that could be lost in the event of accidents resulting from the vandalism of rail tracks. Well, in the meantime, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, during the town hall meeting, described the destruction of public infrastructure in the country as a form of terrorism. He said those responsible for the incessant attacks on police stations, INEC facilities, and other public infrastructure were unpatriotic Nigerians, and their action calls for great concern.
Incessant attacks on critical public facilities such as police stations and INEC offices. As a matter of fact, the destruction of public infrastructure and facilities is not just vandalism, it is a form of terrorism.
Tundu, you know I'm always against capital punishment, but I think that this is such an important statement. I mean, you remember, if you recall, we took that story about these vandals that were destroying the rail tracks. I mean, the type of accident that can occur from, that type of destruction is really unquantifiable, like the minister had said. But, I mean, I don't know how, I think it's a stretch to actually, order the death penalty for those types of criminality. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I agree with you, and I also agree with the two ministers here. I think I'll start with the Minister for Transport, Rotimi Amaechi. I think what he's trying to stress is just how heinous and potentially dangerous this vandalism could be. Obviously, vandalism in and of itself is not a capital offense, but if it results in deaths, we've seen rail disasters all over the world that have cost people their lives. There was one recently, I believe it was in Korea, where the driver fell asleep and scores of people lost their lives as a result. So to actually deliberately go and vandalize is to set a trap to kill your fellow Nigerian. So I do understand. And apart from that, I remember the headlines. Nigeria has borrowed $7.5 billion to fund rail infrastructure. And then you go tinkering with that. It's a disgrace. And I agree with the Minister for Information and Culture, Culture Lai Mohammed. Those people are not just unpatriotic. They are a national disgrace. It is completely unacceptable. Burning down police stations and public infrastructure, what for?
Yes, it's a very important conversation
disgusting
to have, Dr. Bati.
Well, one question to ask to start with is, what is it that drives Nigerians to want to sabotage their own country, to want to destroy public property, to want to steal public property? If Nigerians are not stealing railway sleepers or roads, they are stealing fuel. They will say, oh, government has been telling us something is in the pipeline. They will go to the pipeline to look for the thing themselves and look at the kind of tragedy that at assault on pipelines, of course, in terms of safety, in terms of the loss of lives. If a state government does street lights, right, erect street lights, you'll be surprised overnight. Half of the lights will have disappeared. And these street lights have been put there to help these same people bridge. The bridge here, even the Third Mainland Bridge, some of the railings have disappeared because people have taken them, right? So with regard to rail line, yes, Minister of Transportation is absolutely correct. There have been cases of Kaduna-Zaria rail line, some of the roads being removed. There is the same case with Warri-Itakpe. The other day in Kaduna, the police intercepted a whole busload of rail line, sleepers. So you then ask yourself, why would citizens sabotage their country? Well, it's not justifiable. The people who engage in it, they are guilty of criminal liability. Because if you do that, as has been pointed out, you can destroy the infrastructure, but also destroy lives. Some of them will say they are taking their share of the national cake. Nobody is allowed to take his own share of the national cake in such a criminal manner. Minister Amaechi raised a point about death penalty. Okay, he will need to approach the National Assembly for the law to be enacted in that regard. But what is in the criminal code is that if you are guilty of vandalism, and you are liable, the criminal code says you can be sentenced to not more than a prison of a jail term not exceeding 21 years. So if it is 21 years, that may even look like a slap on the wrist. If there is a destruction of lives involved. In Section 355 of the Penal Code, it says, a fine or a jail term of not more than 1 year. So, these are very light sentences, and that's why people have been arguing, not even just now, as far back as 5-6 years ago, that maybe the death penalty would discourage people from destroying public infrastructure. But definitely, we need to worry more long term about what motivates Nigerians to destroy their own infrastructure. Minister Amaechi made one more point, that in one case in Jos, it was discovered that there was a Chinese company buying these railroads from the Vandals. And then when the matter went to court, that Chinese company was fined just 200,000 naira. So if that is the case, then it means the law itself is providing incentive for people to be destroying and vandalizing public property. So at the level of that principle, it has a point. Whether it is now death penalty that will be decided at the end of the day, or lifetime in jail, that will be a matter for the National Assembly to determine.
All right, we'll take another story. As Nigerians continue to show concern over the incessant kidnappings and the whereabouts of bandits in the country, the Director General of the National Space Research and Development Agency, Halilu Shaba, on Monday announced that Nigeria's satellite is outdated but still functioning by grace. The Director General, while speaking on satellite operations and national security, said Nigeria has only one satellite, which is not enough to serve the country. The satellite, which was installed in 2011, is said to have a lifespan of 7 years and is now overdue for replacement. Rufai, your analysis on the story. This is absolutely
Oji, when I heard this story, I was shocked. Is there something we don't know? I thought they launched 2 satellites. There was NIGESATCOM 1, NIGESATCOM 2. There was a communication satellite and the surveillance satellite. I thought they did this, that we launched in somewhere around the Caucasus, around Russia area. So why is it that all of a sudden there's only one we have? And why is it that it is in this deplorable state? We need to go one step further and interrogate this. And that's why we need to call on leadership to do what is right. We can't keep taking money for the advancement of science and not do what we ought to do with the money. A country this big, not even having a proper satellite working. It's in the Constitution. You know, there's a provision for expansion in science and development. The Constitution of this country talks about that. Because no country can grow without science and development. And the shocking part that a country the size of Nigeria, 923,000 square kilometers, do not have one satellite working, where companies have satellites. I mean, we're talking about Blue Origin and Jeff Bezos. You talked about him wanting to go to the space. We talk about NASA now giving contracts to Elon Musk company for satellites. And we don't have one satellite working, because it is with that satellite we'll be able to pinpoint bandits, do surveillance, have communications, and the likes. So something must be done. We need to investigate all the monies that have been plowed into the Ministry of Science and Development or the National Space Agency. What has been done with that money? We need to account for every cover of it. And if enough money has not been put in, we should ensure that we get the right resource in there for them to grow. Thirdly, we should support our homegrown scientists. We have a lot of them in every part of the world. There's this bright young engineer, this woman in NASA and some other parts. Oji, you brought the story of the man in robotics the other time, and I said we never get funding. Let us support our own. Nigeria is a great country. We have the best brains all over the world. If we bring them in, they can run places like this. We have the likes of Philip Emeagwali and some other great scientists. So let us all bring them in. But please, we should make it as a mandatory point, to have a satellite running properly that can do its effective work. If not, then we have failed as a nation. 1963, President Kennedy said the famous words, "We want to go to the moon. We want to go to the moon and do other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard." Nigeria should do the hard stuff of national development through science.
Well said, Rufai. Dr. Bati.
Well, just to provide a quick information, I think it was in 2004 or so that Nigeria first toyed with the idea of satellite. That was NIGSAT-1, but it failed. It was supposed to be part of a constellation of efforts, including Russia and some other countries, and that was specifically for weather monitoring. But it collapsed around 2008. The second one was NIGCOMSAT-1, which was supposed to be for surveillance, because you can use the satellite for reconnaissance. Now, that again had a lifespan of 5 years, and so it failed. It expired. Now, this new one that Dr. Shaba, who is the Director General of the Space Research Agency, is talking about, was put in place in 2011. That one has a lifespan of 7 years. So these satellites, they have lifespan. And what he's saying is that this particular satellite, it has expired since 2018. But we're still using it because it is still working. And according to him, he's giving us accurate data. How does he know that the data is accurate? The way the world is now, people set up satellites not just for reconnaissance, not just for sustenance, surveillance, not just for weather monitoring. You can use it for health purposes, in agriculture. You can use it in many ways. Yes. So we should change ourselves. We wait for the refineries to collapse before we begin to think of a refinery. We wait for the satellite to expire. 7 years later, we're just talking about, we have only one satellite. We'll wake up one morning, that satellite will fail, like the one in 2008, and Nigeria will not have any satellite to talk about.
All right, well said. We'll take our final story in Anambra State. Over the weekend, a truck conveying cows was burnt down by an angry mob after the truck driver allegedly killed 8 child street hawkers accidentally. The truck driver was reported to have experienced a failed brake, and as a result, the mob set the truck ablaze without rescuing the cows. Let's take a look at this video before we come back for a discussion.
It's a serious melee. We don't know what's going to happen next. Security agents that were here have dispersed. And considering what is happening right now, we can't tell what is going to happen next. The youths are angry. Everybody is angry. No one wants to get involved in the whole incident. It's a messy situation. You can see the car struggling, and the youths are jubilating. The youths are jubilating. I don't know. The whole road is blocked.
I saw you couldn't watch that clip. This is animal cruelty at its worst.
It's actually unspeakably barbaric, what they did. How dare they? The accident occurred and children were killed, which is tragic in itself. But could he not have been apprehended, taken to the police, and the police should... yes, what is this jungle justice? And they burnt those cows alive. That needed a trigger warning. That is extremely distressing.
I know, really, really unacceptable what happened in Anambra State. And the point is that they said that security operatives were there and they couldn't do anything to rescue those cows. What, there are no more fire trucks? I don't understand what happened there.
This is deeply disturbing.
Dr. Abati.
Well, this occurred in Umuchu in Anambra State. And we had a guest earlier, Honorable Onyegocha, who pointed out that, in fact, the truckload of cows belongs to a certain man called Cosmos. And it wasn't an attack by the Igbo community on, herdsmen coming from the north. And I thought, what he said in that regard is very helpful. The second part is, this is a story of Nigeria. People resort to self-help at the slightest provocation. And, because they have no faith in the system, in the rule of law. And so they resort to jungle justice. I don't know what eventually became the fate of those cows. I hope they didn't. I hope the people didn't end up collecting suya meat at the end of the day.
That as well. Rufai.
Sad. Please, let's say no to jungle justice, please. Let's allow law enforcement deal with things like that. Too much gory pictures. Oji, we just want to have a break in this country. Too much death, killing everywhere, please.
Thank you, Rufai. Well, that's all I have for you guys on What's Trending today.
Thank you.
See you again tomorrow.